and welcome to a Saturday afternoon. This is going to be a special show. It's basically the Q&A. So I had asked a while back for some Q&A questions for our 1-year channel anniversary. You guys have come through. I've got about 7 questions. And in addition to those, I'm going to, of course, answer whatever comes up here today and, of course, chat. So far, we've got a few people already showing up. We've got Jordan. Hi, Jordan. Always good to see the early board. And we got Mr. Red Taco wishing everybody a good morning. And there is Jill saying, hey, peeps. Absolutely. So the reason I went with 12 o'clock, just to be clear, is that if I had put this at the same time as my normal 9 o'clock on Saturday, that'd be pretty early for the folks on the West Coast. So that's why I moved it to 12 for today. And then where's a Q&A, I just thought, you know what? It's a lot easier to do it as a video, not as a video. It's much easier to do it not as a video, but rather as live, because that way there I can ramble a bit. Because one of the things I didn't want to see happen is I didn't want to see my answers get edited out, which is kind of the way a video sometimes works, is that you get succinct, straight to the point, no ramble, and I feel like rambling. And we got the Bleak in the house. Hey, hey, Bleak. Good to see you. All right. The very first question I got has absolutely nothing to do with finance. Somebody asked what my favorite color is. So what is your favorite color? I'm like, I said I would answer anything. So I will answer that question. The answer is it's kind of complicated. When I was a kid, I was kind of partial to green, not like a lime green or just a regular primary green, but more of a almost forest dark green. I just really kind of resonated with that color. But then as I became a little bit older, started moving towards my teen years, I also started then to like purple a lot. And so purple sort of came in, not to the point of being like a purple freak, but purple was kind of neat. Early 20s, I think I went through a black phase where I thought black was just nice grounded color, works with everything. Black should be my favorite color. But what it's all evolved into, and I think this is a color I've always liked. My favorite color is it's orange, not like a bright orange, but rather your darker colored orange, almost like a Halloween orange. And I do love Halloween because I am very much an autumn person, so I love the autumn. So that all works in pretty darn well. Phil says, hi, Candace. Hey, Phil, I'm glad to see you here this afternoon. And Nitchin, I hope I said it right, Nitten says, hey, if I didn't pronounce your name right, Nitten, let me know, because I really like to pronounce people's names correctly. And Jill just called me a purple freak. That strikes to the heart, Jill. That strikes to the heart. No, not a purple freak. Although when I was in my purple phase, I did have a pair of purple sneakers, which I thought were really, really cool. But you wouldn't catch me dead in a pair of purple sneakers nowadays. Most of my sneakers tend to be black. Oh, and Nitten says that, yes, that's correct. Perfect. Woohoo! That I like. That's fantastic. Now, as we're going through some of these questions here today, you guys got the ability to redirect or just ask brand new questions. And it can honestly be about anything. If you want to ask me a question about astrophysics, sure, I'm game. I'm game for whatever it is that you guys want to do. So that's kind of cool. Nitten says, how's been your day so far? My day has been fantastic. I had a good night's sleep. I actually slept until about 6:30 a.m. this morning. I got up, had some breakfast, came down, did a few. I like to do a little bit of analysis on my channel, so I did some statistical analysis. Then I worked out for about 35 minutes and watched a couple videos, watched something on YouTube. There was actually, Jill sent me something on trading psychology. I watched that. That was about a 30-minute video. Then I started thinking about this and getting ready, making sure the camera was going to work because I changed up the studio a little bit. I had my green screen on like a rack, but I felt that it was a little too close to me. So I actually removed it off the rack and put it directly on the wall. And I'm kind of messing around with cameras and things because the studio is going to change a little bit because I did order a new computer that's going to be added to the studio. Now, that's not coming till November because I kind of got a bit of a backlog over there at Apple. I was laughing at the Herm. I don't know who the Herm is. I think I missed that reference. Purple was my high school color. Awesome, Phil. Awesome. Oh, the term. Okay, understood. Can you even buy purple sneakers now? I know. Well, you can probably buy them on the internet. You can buy anything on the internet. You can buy any color sneakers. There we go. 6 a.m. You rebel you. I know. Well, honestly, I'm normally up between 5:30 and 6. So that's just a normal day for me. And good morning, Dave. It is fantastic to see you. Woohoo! Are you starting some trading classes? Well, Nitin, that's a really good question. I am more and more looking at that because there has been, and you're not the first, there's been a lot of people in the community who are like, you need to have a class on day trading, on just trading in general. I'd sign up. And I'm like, well, that is something I think I would like to do. But here's the thing. I'm not just going to haphazardly throw something together. If I do it, I'm going to do it good because, if I'm, especially if people are going to pay to take, and I'm not going to charge a lot. I refuse to charge an insane amount. If people are going to pay to take a class, I'm going to make sure that every penny it costs is absolutely worth it. Because that's just the way I am. My first pair of Converse sneakers were purple. All right. So there we go. We got more people who've had purple. Well, you've come a long way from a filing in her laundry room. That is true. Those of you who have not seen my first video, it was filmed in a laundry room of all things. So that's kind of one of those things. Probably, I think my first three videos, I believe, were filmed in my mom's laundry room just before I moved from there to Ottawa. And with Ottawa, I've had a dedicated studio. I've actually had the studio on 2 different levels. I had a smaller studio upstairs, but as the channel began growing and as my needs started growing, we moved the studio to the basement. So now I've got lots of space. Everyone loves it. Well, I guess I'm everyone. No one likes someone who half-asses something. Yeah, absolutely, Mr. Red Taco. That's one of those things. I do not want to, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do my best at it, not just the way it is. Now, here's an interesting question. We'll go to question 2 while I'm waiting for you guys to throw more at me. How did you become interested in investing? That's a really good question because I will honestly tell you, I had no exposure to investing in school. I went through university, no exposure to investing. Probably the closest exposure I had to investing, it really wasn't there. Probably when I started playing World of Warcraft, you started to get a little bit into the economy in that. So that was probably the closest I had come to investing. But here was the thing. I love learning. I'm an absolute lover of earning. And one of the shows that I started to like was like Shark Tank and things like that. Kevin O'Leary, I found him kind of interesting. And he started talking a lot about investing. You can't really watch a lot of Kevin O'Leary without him getting into it. And I know one day he was talking about the power of compounding. And I was sitting there and I'm like, okay, that sounds really, really cool. And at that point, I was like, you know what? This is an area that I've been ignoring way too long. So I did what everybody does. I basically spent 40 hours watching nonstop YouTube videos on investing. From there, I then started looking at, I got some books. I started reading some books. First book I actually read was The Dummy's Guide to Investing, the Canadian version. It is linked down below if any of you guys are interested in that. But that was the first one I started reading, and I started absorbing information. Now, the thing about me is I am very, very, very good at absorbing information, and I can learn really, really fast. I used to be a trainer for a technology company in Vancouver, and a lot of times I had management come to me and say, "Okay, here's a whole new procedure. This needs to be trained by the end of the week." And I'm like, okay. So I would then have to very quickly, first of all, I'd have to teach myself the procedure and any of the information around it. Then I would have to design the training. Then I would have to train the trainers so that they could get this rolled out. And usually in those type of situations, because where everything had to move so fast, I would have to get back into the classroom, which was great because I'll tell you, when I was a trainer, I loved it. I loved being in the classroom. I loved teaching people new information. But when I became the manager of the training, our national training manager, but when I took that role, I was no longer in the classroom. So at first, I initially had this thing where I came in 30 minutes of every new hire class just to give them just a quick, introduction to the company. But even then, I at that point, I had to start traveling between Montreal, Edmonton, and Vancouver. So there really wasn't a lot that I could do there. But with investing, anyway, once I began to learn about investing, I then got exposed to, of course, some of the investing YouTubers. I think HiRi was the first, well, not the first, probably Brandon Beavis. Then I stumbled upon HiRi, and then from HiRi, uh, I sort of started playing with the idea that I would like to do YouTube. And that's kind of sprang me into YouTube because I was watching. I'm like, I can do this. I can do this. And I've always wanted to, like, probably for the last 5 years, I wanted to start a YouTube channel, but I just didn't know what I wanted to do on YouTube. I almost thought about different things. Do I want to do like a reaction thing where I just watch stuff and give my honest reaction? But I'm like, oh, that's just kind of that's not hitting my strong points. My strong points is being able to educate, to be able to take more complex topics and boil them down into simpler terms. So I wanted to be able to pull all of that in, and investing was becoming a passion because one of the things you got to realize about me, I've always have to have a topic that I am absolutely, I don't want to say obsessed, but almost focused on, like super focused. And in that case, it used to be at one point it was World of Warcraft. At other points, it was just different mythologies and science and different things like that. But when I turned that towards investing, that really helped me get a total leg up on the whole, on the whole genre, the whole niche. And so that worked out really well. So, you know, last summer, I was starting to put the things together. I was like, okay, I want to do YouTube. I want to do it about investing. I think I feel like my foundation is solid enough. And I knew going in, you know what, I'm still always going to be learning. I will probably make mistakes, and hopefully people will call me out when I make a mistake, because otherwise I won't learn that I made a mistake, right? But I knew that it was something I wanted to do. So I was kind of thinking and thinking through the summer, and I think there was a couple of big hindrances. Like, I know that the Danters wanted me to come on their show, and I was like, nah, I'm kind of happy behind the camera for now. One of them was just where I was located. I had a laundry room where I had my computer set up at, because I was living at my mom's at the time, and I didn't even have a room. Like, quite literally, at nighttime I slept in the living room. I had a rolled out cot that I pulled out, and I slept on that. So it was kind of a long journey that way. And I'm just keeping my eye on where we are in the chat, 'cause I'm going to get to every single chat here today. Yeah, so I then kind of like said, you know what? The hell with it. I knew I was moving to Ottawa. I knew that I'd have space in Ottawa. And I was like, let's do it. Let's just get this done. So you know, I did that thing where you just hit record and you just do your first video. It's going to be a dog's breakfast. And it absolutely was a dog's breakfast, in my opinion. I was proud of it probably at the time, but right now I look back and I'm just like, I contemplated reacting to that video on this stream, but then I was like, oh man, my reaction would just be like, holy banana bread. What did I just say? So that would just add, watch that later and remember me going, holy banana bread. What did I just say? And you've got the reaction. So, that's just kind of how that would have turned out. But yeah, so I got that in. I managed to get, after I did the first one, then it was like, okay, yeah, let's do another, and then another. So it became really easy to get the first couple out. And then at that point, once I moved to Ottawa, I had the space, so I was able to do it a lot easier. Today's stream is not sponsored, but it should be because I'd love these guys, the bubbly water stuff. So if you know Bubbly, let them know that they should sponsor me. Just don't mind me. So yeah, once I got those out, it was pretty easy to get into that. All right. So I think that was kind of a good ramble for that question. And Dave D says, congratulations on 1,000 subs. Thank you, Dave. It's good to be there. And then Jordan is howdy. And Nitin is Wealthsimple worth using for stock and crypto trading? That's a good question. Wealthsimple is, I think, very ideal for doing long-term investing. I don't entirely, if you're doing sort of short-term investing, whether it be swing trading or day trading, I don't find that Wealthsimple is, for me anyway, it wasn't the best choice. That's one of the reasons that I do day trading at a national bank. I also want to look at Desjardins because I think they also do commission free. But right now I'm very heavy leaning towards national bank's brokerage for the short-term trading. And then Mr. Red Taco says, you can get purple shoes online. I just looked so in case you want to buy a new pair of shoes. Awesome. Red Beard's World, congratulations, Ms. Mountain. Well deserved. Thank you, Red Beard. Then Mr. Red Taco. Ooh, if Red Beard and Mr. Red Taco were together, well, just like hanging out, I could be like, it's Mr. Red Beard's Taco. Honey, that'd be kind of funny. Jill says, Nitin, it depends on how much trading you plan on doing, but yes, it is. Yeah, I mean, Wealthsimple is totally doable. I think I like the interfaces. I just find that I can move a little bit faster on. Now, I want to give you a caveat too. I've never really used Wealthsimple on my PC, whereas I use the National Bank and I do the day trading on the PC. So I find that much just easier. So maybe Wealthsimple isn't so bad if you're using it on your PC, opposed to if you're using it like on your iPad or your phone. And Joe Bond, I am just a newbie. And you know what, Nitin? We were all newbies once. So that's one of those things. I've always find it funny. Sometimes you get people who've been in something for a long time and somebody new comes along and they're kind of like, oh man, I don't want to deal with the new person. And it's like, well, why wouldn't you? Because when you were a new person, you would definitely want somebody to deal with you and just to help you along and get you going. So new people are awesome. And it's also cool too, because I find that new people to the community, new people to investing are pretty cool because they really bring back into focus what you have done, what you have accomplished. And then having that ability to pass on some of the trials and tribulations and perhaps help them avoid some of the mistakes you may have made is definitely huge. All right. And Nitin says, how much you max made and lost from trading? All right. Max wise, and we're talking day totals, not in a day. I think my record right now is 3,500 in that vicinity. Now I don't lose very often, but I'm hugely conservative. But Friday is definitely a lost day. I don't know yet what the total is because I did not cash out because there was an unexpected drop in a few of my key assets that I'm riding them out through the weekend. Normally, I do cash everything out at the end of the day, but I wasn't willing to take that loss because I knew that these were a couple of assets that would rebound over the weekend. So, but yeah, so probably if I had to guess, Friday's probably going to be a couple $100 in the hole. So that's probably the worst I've done. But let me step back. You can lose a lot more than that. It's one of those things. If you don't play it right, if you don't know how to handle a loss, if you don't have stop losses, if you let yourself get carried too far down on an asset, you can lose a lot of money. And this is like, I don't even touch leverage if you throw leverage into the mix, because a lot of day traders like to use leverage. And the reason they like to use leverage is because it enhances the amount of reward that you can get. Now, in my case, I do have the finances in place that I can make larger bets. So I don't need the leverage to do it, which is nice because then I'm not losing money that I don't have. And that's where people can get really, really wrecked. So um, definitely one of those things I don't think people should jump into. Bad visuals. Yes, that was probably a silly joke, Redbeard. Nitin, which other platform is better for short-term trading? Ideally free. And he's asking Jill. So right now, as far as I know, and there may be more, we got National Bank, we got Wealth Simple, we have Mogu Trade, and I've not even tried them out yet, so I don't know how good they are. And Desjardins, those are I think the 4 that I know of that are commission free. And depending on your trading style, like if you're doing day trading, you're going to be making a lot of trades. Commissions can eat into your profits big time. That's one of the reasons I try to stick with a commission-free broker for that. Red bearded taco. It's just the names are close enough that I have to almost pull them together. Congrats on the 1,000 subscribers. Hey, Gen X. And I was over on, just come back here, Gen X Canadian Investor. He has a great little channel over there. Anybody wants to check him out? I was watching one of his shorts last night. He does the same thing as me. We both watch BNN Business every morning, which is fantastic. Red Bear's World. I'm still a noob. I still have 95% of the crypto I bought way back. Fell into the HODL. So hold on for dear life. That's what HODL stands for the new folk, trap. Yeah, it can be interesting. And it's really interesting. We're going to talk. I do have a question coming up a little bit later here about selling at a loss, which is going to be cool too. So we'll talk about that momentarily. And Dave says, switched to National Bank last month. Great not to pay commissions. Yeah. So National Bank right now is the only big 6 that is commission free. So they're not bad at all. They're a good alternative. If you don't like Wealth Simple, and some people don't, they are a good alternative to that. And then Jill is Dave, I agree. So yeah, so Jill definitely agrees with that as well. All right. The next question I have is, what was your first career ambitions? Complicated question. When I was a kid, if you asked me what I wanted to be, I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to write novels. I wanted to be, creating stories, things like that. So that's kind of cool. So that affected me in such a way that when we learned how to handwrite in school, I hated it because books weren't handwritten. Books were printed. So I handwrote as long as I could. But the second it was no longer a rule in school that you had to handwrite, I switched right back to printing because it looked more like text in a book. And even by high school, I could handwrite, I could print as fast as anybody could handwrite. So I was very good at it. And even today, it's like if I have to handwrite something other than my signature, it's like, okay, how do you do a Q again? I don't know. So I might even have to Google it. It's hard to say. That's how little. But now again, I almost never print very much either anymore because everything is done online. So that has changed things, I think, quite a bit. Oh, we never really finished this question. So yes, so I had wanted to be a writer. And that probably persisted all the way up into high school. Now, into high school, I really got deeper into science. And I thought about going into medicine, to be honest. I was like, okay, I have an aptitude for science. I can learn really well. I was extremely good at biology and chemistry, and I was okay at physics. So, I eventually, I got a lot of scholarships when I finished high school, and I went in and did a double major in biology and chemistry, and that was fine. I still loved it. But then came the job world. I decided I didn't know what I wanted to do after, so I went into water testing initially. So basically, I went out, collected water samples, took them back to the lab, and ran different tests on them for like something called BOD, which is biological oxygen demand, suspended solids, things like that, just to make sure that the water that I was testing was safe, because this was water that was run off from a solid waste site. So we wanted to make sure that it wasn't bad stuff getting into the environment. But here's the truth. Most boring job I've ever had. Quite literally, Monday I went and I did all the collections on Monday, set up my experiments late Monday afternoon. The rest of the week, I just sat in an office. Every so often, I would take a reading, note it down. Then on Friday, I would take my final readings, write up a quick report. That was my week every week. And I didn't have a computer. So it was incredibly boring. And I was one of these people that I didn't even like to bring books to read to work, because it felt very, I felt guilty about it. So it was kind of at that point, I kind of lost a little bit of my faith in science. I mean, I love science, but at least job wise. And I also had decided in, I think, late university that I wasn't going to pursue medicine. It just was one of those things that was just, I don't know why, I just kind of lost the lust for it. So, from there, I moved into management and did management stuff. I did take some time off, and I did write a book. I have a novel that is written. I self-published it through Amazon. Sold a good amount of copies, not enough to certainly provide a ton of riches and fame or anything like that. But it was a life goal that was accomplished. And now, of course, after discovering finance, that sort of got me here. There's a lot of different things that I did in between, from training, management and training. So a lot of it in that way. I've done a lot of team lead type roles in call centers and things like that. So, but anyway, now I have discovered investing. Now I'm looking at day trading as just a way to make money on the side. That's my, kind of my side hustle. Now, once I can support, if I could fully support, support my lifestyle in YouTube, at that point, I'll probably dial back the day trading a bit, because I'll be honest, day trading is stressful. And it's not something I probably want to do until like I'm 90 or something. So, all right. And now Jill says, I have only played around with National Bank, so I'm not the best to ask, but a lot of people like Q Trade, but it's not commission free. Depends on what you like to use. I'm still new myself. And then Mr. Red Taco, I print and handwrite together now to mess with millennials, do all the handwriting. Yeah, absolutely. Mogo Trade, the zero commission feature, isn't available yet, but the Mogo trading platform is. Oh, you see, I did not know that. Like, I haven't really had a chance to look into Mogo Trade yet. So then definitely remove Mogo Trade from that list. Nitin says, as I know, Wealthsimple has 15 minutes delay during trading. They do, and everybody does to a certain extent. Even with Wealthsimple, even with National Bank, their main values have a 15-minute delay on it. But when you go in, when you just open up the sell window, it gives you the price as it is then. And then I'm looking at the ask bid to determine whether or not I'm going to make that move. So that's kind of interesting there. Now with Wealthsimple, if you do have the pro version, there's like a little refresh button underneath the price that you can hit, and it will update that price for you right then and there. So you'll have that. But a lot of times what you really want to be doing, because with day trading, you need to be accurate, because, sometimes your sell point, like your sell moment, may only last a minute or a half, maybe a minute, maybe two, before it decides to crash back down again. So you kind of have to be prepared for that minute to get in there and just, and sell it fast, because speed is kind of important. And I noticed doing crypto is not as good too, as it has too much delay. Yeah, no, you can make money on crypto. I find crypto, I wouldn't say day trading crypto would be something I would want to do, but I think crypto is not bad for swing trading. You're going to be using a lot of technical analysis. Like you will use when you're doing day trading, you are using technical analysis. So for example, you're going to be looking at some supports, and you're going to be looking at resistances. And what you're looking for is you're basically looking for something that's moving up, down, up, down, up, down. And I guess I should have gone that way. Up, down, up, down, up, down. That's what you're looking for, because then what you're doing is you're selling at that bottom. Sorry, you're selling at the top, you're buying at that bottom, and you're doing that over and over again. And that's how you're making a lot more money. So for example, if something goes up 10 ticks over, over the afternoon, well, it may have went, up 2 ticks, down a tick, up 2 ticks, down 2 ticks, up a couple ticks. So you're buying at those little ups and downs. So instead of getting full 10 ticks worth of profit at the end of the day, you might be able to pull out like a 15 ticks if you're timing it right. And one of the big things I usually say when it comes to day trading is greed is not your friend. A lot of times I get out, I've made what I'm looking to make, and I watch it continue to go up, and I'm like, oh, why? If only I'd stayed in. But here's the reality: is if you stay in too long, it can come down pretty fast. So a lot of times people will go in and say, okay, well, I'll pick my profit when at a profit. I'll pick my asset, and if it goes down, let's say 2 ticks, I'm going to bail. I'm not going to let it go any lower. Or if it goes up 3, maybe 4 ticks, and maybe even 5 if you want to be aggressive, that's my sell point. So then what's going to happen is while you're investing in it, let's say you invest in, let's say 10 assets. Well, maybe 6 of them, you're right. And it goes up and you hit your point. And then the other 4, you ended up bailing out. But when you take all of that together, you should have made a profit. And that's kind of one of those whole things. And we're going to talk a lot more, I think, about day trading, because I know people have said they want some more day trading videos. So we'll definitely bring that up. And I know that in the live streams, people are going to continue to bring this up over and over again. Have a good stream. Love ya. Hi, Pascal. Good to see ya. And can you tell me the concept of ask, bid, open, close, things like that? All right. So you've got your ask and you got your bid. So what happens with the ask bid is you'll open, let's say you're going to sell. You'll notice that you'll have the 2 numbers. So your number may be 10.1 or 10.01 and then 10.02. So what that means is that if you're selling it, it's always going to be the lower number that you're going to get. So it might be, so that 10.01 is what you will get when you sell. When you go to buy, it's always the higher number is what you're going to pay. That's the easiest way to remember without having to get too deep into detail on breaking everything down. And because a lot of times it'll also give you the amount that they have in each one, because that usually shows when it may change or it may not, depending on what the bids are. And the bids are what people are willing to pay, because this is what drives the price. You can get a situation where the price is $10, but it's much higher when it comes to the ask and the bid. And that usually means when you see something like that, price is $10, the bid ask is like, let's say 10.04 and 10.05, that asset is probably going up whenever that, or if it's $10 and the bid and ask are below $10, that asset is probably going to drop. So that gives you an idea that if you're thinking about bailing on that asset, that might be the time to bail. So it's kind of interesting the way you have to look at it. And I think too, when I make some videos on it, I can actually show graphics and things like that. It'll make that a lot clearer, but that is a good question. All right. Likes are free, folks. Yes, they are. Absolutely. Now, in addition to likes, just to sort of point things out, our YouTube is now fully set up with all of the bells and whistles. So we got super chats, we got the thank yous and the emotes and all of that. We also have channel memberships. So I'll talk a tiny bit about that. Once we get a few people who are interested in doing the channel membership thing, I'll look at adding some extra content for channel members, but it will be additional content. It will not affect the regular content, because this will always be the home of free content. So I certainly am looking to do some extra stuff for channel members once, we get to that point, and shout outs. And a lot of too, basically at that point, when we do get, a handful of channel members, I'm going to ask the channel members, what do you guys want? Because I've always been big on trying to give you guys what it is that you guys want, because I can guess what you want, but I can probably guess completely wrong. So that kind of makes sense. And Patricia is just listening in. Hey, Patricia, hope you're having a fantastic Saturday afternoon. And Dave says, thanks, Jill. Have not heard of Mogo, or I forgot about it. Yeah, so Mogo, I think a lot of people have actually seen Mogo as one of those things. I was going to say one of those things. It started as one of them cards. Like you could get that Mogo card, which was basically you could earn a little bit of Bitcoin for using the card. And now they've got their whole trade system. I haven't really done a lot of looking into it. I know we have at least one person who is totally into it. And Nitin says 99 cents. All right. I don't know if that's a super thing or not. Who knows? At this point, I'm still learning about all of these new fangled things. But if it is, then thank you, Nitin. Always greatly appreciated. And Mr. Red Taco, I want butter chicken and rice. I bet you weren't expecting that. You know what? Butter chicken and rice in a red taco. Just saying, that could be pretty good. So Generation X is saying, oh, you know what, Nitin? I think you did donate 99 cents. Thank you very much, Nitin. You're like this first superstar of the day. Because it's still highlighted. That's how I figured that out. Also, keep in mind, I'm using the StreamYards, so I have to kind of get used to that. So, okay, Gen X Canadian investor, do you get into options trading at all? Not yet. I am still learning about options, and I am thinking of looking at some options down the road. But right now, I think in a way, if I do options, it's more or less going to be so that I can then record it and make some videos out of it, probably. But I think it's because with day trading, at least, I'm getting rewarded right away. So it's not so much having to think of what's going on. All right, Jill mentions we're having butter chicken and cauli today. Oh, see? Now I know what I'm having for supper. I did not know up until now. Nitin, I don't know. I did it for the first time too. There we go. We're both pretty awesome there. Well, anyway, thank you, Nitin. I really appreciate that. That to me is cool. All right. Gen X Canadian investor. Yeah, me either yet. All right. Finally caught up. All right. Who is... Oh, yes. The next question is, can we get more backstory, please? Holy banana bread. People want to know about my backstory. All right, I'll give it to you in a nutshell. So I'm from Nova Scotia. I think most of you probably know that. Every so often you will hear some of that accent slip out because there's a little bit of a Nova Scotian accent. Mostly we like to throw S's on things. So I know about this because it's funny. I was having a meeting once with my boss once when I used to be a trainer, and she was like, why do you say everywheres instead of everywhere? And I was like, do I? And she pointed it out with a bunch of these words that I keep throwing S's on, and I had no clue that Maritimers did this. But I then consciously have been working on not throwing S's on words. So a lot of times I'll go, well, it is everywhere. And I have to pull my mouth shut because I don't want to go because, well, it is everywheres because that's kind of how they would say it back home. So, I worked on getting rid of a lot of that from my dialect. But here's the story. I have lived everywhere. Now I grew up in Nova Scotia, all around Halifax. And then my mom met a guy who was in the army, and so we got dragged to Kingston, Ontario, and that was my first time being out of Nova Scotia at that point. So lived in Kingston for a few years, did a little bit of the very beginning, sort of from going from junior high, transitioning into high school. That was Kingston, Ontario, and I loved it there. I thought Kingston was a really nice town. I had a lot of good friends, and it was all pretty cool. Eventually, I ended up back in Nova Scotia again because my mom missed it. Nova Scotia is one of these places that when you're away from it for a long time, it kind of tries to drag you back. But that kind of was what happened to my mom. And it was actually a really bad move because my stepfather at that time was a couple years away from getting his military pension. But my mom was not willing to do another move. She just, well, other than back to Nova Scotia. And so she had him leave the military like 2 years before he would have had a full pension for life, which was ridiculously silly. At that time, I didn't know that was happening. Otherwise, I would have just told her she was dumb for that. That was a dumb move. But what can you do? So then, yes, we moved back. And then I eventually decided to move to Kingston all on my own. And I did. I moved there for another couple of years and then I came back. Then I moved to Calgary, of all places. I lived there for a while. Loved Calgary. I thought it was pretty great. Then, of course, I eventually, from Calgary, I ended up moving to Hamilton. Hamilton was this, I only lived in Hamilton for a month because I just didn't like Hamilton. Apparently, Hamilton's a lot nicer today, but I left Hamilton and I was just like, where do I want to move? I had two places. I was either going to move to Ottawa or Windsor because I knew people in both Windsor and Ottawa. So I wasn't sure which one to move to, so I flipped a coin and Ottawa won the coin toss. So then I moved to Ottawa. From Ottawa, I moved to Vancouver, back to Halifax, Kelowna, Vancouver again, back to Calgary, Halifax, and then eventually then Toronto, then Halifax again, then Ottawa. So I've been all over. But now I'm at that point where I really don't want a ton of moving anymore. So I'm like, I just want to get this done and we'll make it on our own. And here we go. I've been told Canadians have accents. Lies. They tell you lies. It's just funny because I'll tell you, when I first started with call centers, I normally would go into a brand new call center. I'd have to do calls for a little bit before I get promoted pretty quickly. But people used to think I had an American accent. And I was just like, that's probably because I watched too much American TV as a kid. So hard to say. We don't know. So yes, I've moved around a lot. I've done a lot of different things. I have tons of wacky stories. It's all out there. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of a backstory. Yeah. All right. Now the next question I had is, why do you sell some stocks at a huge loss? And this one of the stocks that they referenced was Involus. So Involus was a stock I had in my TFSA. And here's the thing about selling at a loss. There's a thing I call sideways trading. So it doesn't matter if you're at a loss or if you're at a win. But if you have two stocks that are falling at the same time, and the one you're in has worse fundamentals than the one that's next to it, moving sideways to that stock is not a bad idea. Sometimes you do take a loss, but you moved into a stock that is going to do better long term than the one that you exited out of. And that was the thing with Involus. They were more of a dividend play for me. Their dividend had been cut. Their fundamentals were looking dismal. I did not have a lot of faith in them anymore. And so I moved them into more blue chip stuff that I did have faith in. So that was why I was willing to take a loss in that case. It's one of those situations where, if you're on a plane that's going down and you've got no engines and there's a plane going down there that at least has one engine and you have the opportunity to jump onto that plane, do it. That's what I will do because, that happens when, when you're trading. Sometimes taking a loss. Now, mind you, in a TFSA, you can't really do tax loss harvesting with that. But sometimes it makes sense that, if you're moving from one stock that's just doing absolutely dismal over to one that's doing much better, that's kind of a good thing. Now, keep in mind, too, when you move around within and you rebalance within a TFSA, that anything you sell within your TFSA, don't buy it back they say 30 days. I usually say just to be on the safe 45 days, just to make sure that you don't get sort of hit for day trading within your TFSA, even though technically 30 days is really not day trading. But it's just one of those things that you don't want to be buying things back. So you don't want to sell and buy within there. That's why we don't do day trading in there, because you're not allowed and you'll get into a lot of trouble. So, but that's the thing with a loss, is that you'll have people, and I've heard different YouTubers say, I will not sell at a loss. Well, here's the thing. Whether or not you want to sell at a loss is irrelevant when you play the game using math. You know, if stock A is probably going to go down another 20% and maybe take a long time to recover, and you've got stock B and it's at the same point, but it's only, you're thinking it's only going to go down maybe 10 more percent and it's going to recover fast. Well, it's a no-brainer. The math is saying it's okay to move that over. And that's kind of the way I do my diversification, because it's about the math. It's not about the emotion. It's not about, it's not about a principle of saying, oh, I'm not going to sell in a loss. You know what? If I can make more money by moving it from where it is to a different stock, then yeah, absolutely, I'm doing it. There's no way ands, ifs, about it. All right. Let's see. Jill says, you took a loss on Bitcoin, but that's for the benefit to make more money. Yeah, exactly. So with Bitcoin, I had a full Bitcoin. So, we had a full Bitcoin. Probably our cost base was just over 30,000. And yeah, but I was looking at it, I was like, you know what? I could add that to my day trading fund, and the $10,000 loss, that I'm into right now with the Bitcoin, 10 to 15,000. I can make that, I can get that back, in less than a month, using that funds for day trading. And that's what I did. And I have already recovered that loss. Otherwise, it would still be sitting there at 20,000 or maybe 19,000 or maybe even 17,000, depending on what day of the week it is. So I do still have faith in Bitcoin, but I have more faith in math. If math is telling me I can make more profit by doing something, then my loyalties are going to be with the numbers, opposed to, with a technology that I do strongly still believe in. And, and in the situation, and in the future, obviously, if Bitcoin were to absolutely collapse down to, like 10,000 or something, I could always get back in at that point if I really wanted to. So it comes down to what the math says, and always look at the numbers. When you feel like you've got an emotional reaction to something you're doing in trading, put away the emotions, take out your calculator, take out your pencil, look at the math. What does the math say you should do? And usually the math is right. It's never really let me down, to be honest. Sunk loss fallacy. Yeah, exactly. It's one of those things that sometimes they say you have to spend money to make money. That kind of works into that if you think about it. So Dave D says, I've been away from Nova Scotia for almost 10 years and people still say I have an accent. Yeah, that does not surprise me. No, it's swing trading, period trading, the TFSA, 30 calendar days, 20 business days. There you go. Nitin says, do you think crypto will go up in the future like last year? General thought. Will crypto go up in the future? Yes, absolutely. Here's the thing with Bitcoin. With Bitcoin, and we'll, by extension, we'll include Ethereum. These are technologies that are going to be, they're going to be big, but how long is it going to take? With Bitcoin, for example, what we need regulation. We don't have that yet. And that's what's keeping the big money out of Bitcoin. Now, when you start to hear that regulation is happening, well, then you really want to start paying attention to Bitcoin. And I'll tell you, if I hear resolution is about to happen, regulation is about to happen, yeah, I would strongly be considering jumping back in at that point, because once you have some firm regulation in place, then things like teachers' unions and pension funds, well, if they start allocating, even if they were to all allocate about 3% of their fund to Bitcoin, that is an insane amount of money that would be flowing into Bitcoin. And that price, well, you would have new all-time highs more than likely. But until that happens, right now, all the retail money that was in Bitcoin, a lot of it's gone because of inflation, And people just, people who have decided not to go back to work are all of a sudden, pulling out their crypto because they need that money just to survive. So we don't have the money in there right now. We need that regulation to get that institutional pension funds, unions, all of that into Bitcoin. That's going to make a difference right there. Until then, anybody who right now, especially Bitcoiners, if you see a Bitcoiner, not the Canadian Bitcoiners, those guys are awesome. But if you see a YouTuber who's going, oh, Bitcoin is going to go to the moon, we're going to be breaking 100,000. Most of them have stopped saying that, luckily, but it's not going to happen anytime soon. Even regulation, we're probably still maybe a couple of years away from seeing that become a reality, to be honest. So Bitcoin is more of a long-term game right now. And it's one of those situations that if you want to DCA into it, fantastic. As long as, it's not money that's going to, hurt you elsewhere. So that's what I would say about Bitcoin. All right, let's see. Where do we think? Here we are. Okay, wow. Okay, I need to learn about day trading now. There is a lot of money in day trading, but at the same time, it is a highly stressful job. You are stressed because you're sitting sometimes you're sitting on a razor's edge and you're like, okay, come on, you need to move up. I don't need to lose money right now. And so, that can sort of be a little stressful as you're watching it. And it's one of these jobs where you're going to lose. Like there's no way you can make every trade win. Trades are going to lose. A lot of times, most day traders, when they start, they're lucky if it's a 50-50. That's if they make good moves, it's 50-50. As you get better, eventually you'll get to like 60-40. So 60% of your trades work, 40% don't. But it's how you handle, how you process those trades. You want to be making more money on the trades that work than the amount of money you're losing on the trades that don't work. So you're creating this whole balance and you're kind of maneuvering the way the finances are working. So that way you're utilizing it to make yourself a whole whack of money. That's kind of the whole general idea with day trading. But initially you're probably going to lose money. And, we'll talk a lot more about this in the future as well. And Jill says it will definitely go up. Crypto, well, at least BTC and ETH, but altcoins depends on the coin. Yeah, usually with altcoins, you want to look and see what that coin does. If you can find a fair use for that coin or a good use or some practicality, then it's probably a coin that will go up. But right now, I think until all of the bear market and the crypto winter have passed, there's probably going to be a lot of coins that get shaked out. So you want to be really careful as to which other coins you want to look at. And a lot of times, if you check out like the friggin' Oracle, he has a really good idea. He does a lot of research. So he's one of these really good resources when you're looking at altcoins for sure. All right. And here we go. And we got Nitin here. How does stock and crypto and dollar rate relate in terms of going up and down? Are they related to each other? Yes, in many different ways. So if you take Bitcoin, for example, Bitcoin is priced in US dollars. So that means because it's priced in a US dollar, it has an inverse relation to the price of the dollar. So if the US dollar tanks, that will inflate the price of Bitcoin because, one Bitcoin is still worth one Bitcoin, but it's now worth more US dollars because that US dollar is worth less. So the price on Bitcoin has gone up, although its value hasn't changed, only its price has. Same idea, if the US dollar soars, it will push the price of Bitcoin down. Bitcoin's value, still the same. One Bitcoin equals one Bitcoin, but because it's pegged to the dollar and the dollar has gone up, it forces the price lower. So it kind of works that way. Oil is the same thing. When you look at the price of West Texas Intermediate, which is one of the main ones that we look at when it comes to oil prices, so WTI, it's also pegged to the US dollar. So if the US dollar soars, the price of oil will go down. And when the US dollar tanks, you'll see the price of oil go up. So those are just one factor. There's a lot of other factors that affect, for example, everything from Bitcoin to oil. But the dollar price does have that relationship because anything, if it's priced in a dollar, if it's priced in the US dollar, then the US dollar will affect it. Shiba Bone, do your own research. Yeah, and I think a lot of people are very much into Shiba. Um, it's out there. It seems to have some longevity. So that's going to be one of those things that you do definitely want to look at. And there's also, I mean, there's a lot of people out there that well, let's look at Leslie here. Leslie says Bitcoin and crypto are just a Ponzi scheme. They have no value, just what the next person is prepared to pay. And that's, that is true. I mean, that is what the value is. If somebody is not willing to pay $20,000 for a Bitcoin, um, you're going to have to sell it cheaper. So, and it kind of works that way. And that also works that way with stocks too, to a certain extent. If people are not willing to pay $20 for a share of XYZ, well, then XYZ is going to be maybe selling at $19.50 because people are willing to pay that. So it's kind of, that's where the whole psychology comes when you're talking about technical analysis. It has to deal with how much people are willing to buy, how much of a rarity do you have on that stock. So if everybody wants to buy the same stock, that price goes up because, as the stock becomes more scarce, there's less and less of it to trade. So people are having more difficulty getting it and they're paying more and more to get it. So it kind of, that whole thing with price and that works. I mean, basically, if you just look at the economy, that works in the economy as well. Like if you only have so much product and everybody wants your product, you can charge a lot more for that product. And it works that way. So I don't know if I'd call it, like, I wouldn't call Bitcoin a Ponzi scheme per se, but I would say there's a lot of cryptos out there that, have turned out to be schemes in one way, shape, or form. We've had a lot of everything from rug pulls to, just absolute bad management causing coins to drop to zero. So, it's not a good thing. And now Jill says, well, everything is willing to pay for something. That is what demand is. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's a speculative asset. Although once we have regulation in place, it will put, and that's one of the reasons that we don't have places like teachers, like teachers unions and different funds, pension funds coming in, is for the simple reason that until there is that regulation, that's all Bitcoin can technically be, is a speculative asset. Even if, I mean, the SEC has said, but not on paper. They've said in an interview that, they consider it to be a commodity. But until the regulation is in place, it is nothing more than a speculative asset. Jill is 100% right on that. Now, some people will definitely argue that, but what can you say? That's just kind of the way it works. All right, next question. What is your overall investing strategy? Take a drink for that. All right. It's interesting. When I first started investing, I discovered dividends. And I loved dividends. I still love dividends because I was thinking, oh, passive income. This is a great thing. It'd be great to be able to make enough passive income that, it would just pay for everything. And then you could just, live your life the way you wanted to. But here's the thing. It's so easy to get caught up in dividends. It's so easy to start chasing yields. But what I've discovered is that when I look at some stocks, I'll use CN as an example. When I looked at CN, I wouldn't touch them initially when I started investing. And they're one of my favorite stocks now, but I wouldn't touch them. The reason I wouldn't touch them is I'd look at the dividend and it's like, it's only giving like just over 2%. That's not very much. I can do a lot better than that. But what I wasn't looking at is I wasn't looking at the growth that CN was getting. So when I was looking at their dividend, their 2% dividend or 2.5%, wherever they are right now, when I was looking at that, I wasn't looking at the growth. And if they're then growing, 22%, all of a sudden, instead of you've got a return on investment of 25, almost 25%. And it's like, that is worth a lot more. So investing wise, by investing in something like that, like even if it's just a situation where I don't want, if I'm looking to just pull money out every time, I could still even invest in CN, and then I could, then maybe pull out a stock or two when I need money if I really needed to. So it's kind of that whole thing, because most investors, if you're thinking long term, well, you're not pulling out them dividends, you're reinvesting them, or you're doing what's called DRIP, dividend reinvestment plan. So if you're doing it that way, a growth, so a total, and this is what I call a total growth stock. So, you're getting both, best of both worlds. You're looking for a dividend that's better than average, with half decent growth. And when you have that happening, you've got your portfolio growing at a massive rate. Now, here's the beautiful thing. In your TFSA, if you have, because you only have a limited room, because it grows every year, but you have a limited amount of space. So if you just have the dividends in there, so if you just fill it up with dividend stocks and they're paying you maybe, let's say 9% a year, so then you're growing your TFSA by 9%. So you're getting a little bit more space, but not a lot. But if you're putting in total return stocks that are, returning you between 20 and 30%, well, your TFSA, your contribution room has grown much more than almost double what it has grown, when it comes to just doing dividends. So once I kind of got that, and that sort of I became a huge fan of total return investment. So I like the high dividends, but my ideal stock are, mid to high dividends that also have growth. Obviously, the higher the dividends and the higher the growth, the better. So I will add those up, and I'll look at the total return number, and that will tell me, okay, this is a good stock. Because sometimes I may get a stock that has a 9% dividend on it, but it's got absolutely no growth. So that to me is not a super ideal stock to have. Super ideal would be if I had, let's say 6% dividends, but I was getting, 10% growth in addition to that. So then 16%. Now, keep in mind, that's when the market is healthy. Right now, we're in that situation where we're in a bit of a bear market. So things are just not growing. So right now, what a lot of investors do in a bear market is a lot of them will actually start, just investing in a bit more of those higher dividend stocks, because it at least keeps some money flowing, that way. So, it comes down to, for me anyway, investing wise, I definitely like long term. I do like blue chip. And my number one thing is, if I can get a total return stock that's doing great dividend wise and growth, I am totally there. All right. So do you think Twitter is a good buy or it's going to drop? That's a really good question, Nitin. So Twitter they've been through a lot with the whole everything with Elon Musk, and now it looks like we've got this deal coming back on. Twitter is going to be one of these stocks. Like I'm not willing to invest in it. I don't think I'm willing to gamble in Twitter. Maybe once Elon Musk has taken ownership of Twitter, and does whatever he does to it, he might have a better business model than where it is right now. And that would certainly make it an investment at that time. But I think right now, if you're looking to get in and get some quick money, I don't know if that's going to work. Sometimes it does, but I think with Twitter, I would be a little bit cautious. Any investment that you do throw into Twitter, just make sure it's money that if it doesn't do what you're hoping it does, it's not going to be upsetting. So, because there's probably better investments out there that you're going to get a better return. So I would be a little bit easier when it comes to Twitter. All right. And I think I missed I missed Leslie's response to the whole Ponzi scheme thing. Yes, but stocks have an underlying business, sales, assets. Yeah, absolutely, they do. And that's one of the reasons. But it's still, the price itself still goes by how much people are willing to pay. And it still goes down. And obviously, the more assets the stock has, the more value that stock has, the more infrastructure that stock has, the more people will pay. That's a direct correlation. All right. Now, in regards to Twitter, Ryan says probably not worth 44 billion. Yeah, I think at this point right now, I mean, they've been through the ringer. So that's kind of one of the things that if it were a quick, easy sale, like if the bear market hadn't happened, I think it would have been a more quick, easy sale. At that point, yeah, you would have been easy. Jump in, you probably would have made money, no questions asked. But it went completely into, well, Elon, I'll call it Elonville. I don't know. It went into some strange places, so that makes me a lot more hesitant. All right. Mad Jukes says, hi, awesome channel. Thank you, Mad Jukes. Rumble over Twitter. Yeah, a lot of people love Rumble. I've heard more with Rumble, so it might be something worth to check out. Let's see. How to find new stocks in the market. Well, there's a few different ways to find new stocks. A lot of times I'll find new stocks from different ways. One, even though I make YouTube videos, I like to, I like, especially with the Canadian content creators, I like to peruse their stuff. I like to be watching, keeping our eyes. And sometimes I find a new stock that way. Somebody might do a video on a stock, and I'm like, oh, I haven't really heard of that one. Another place is BNN. I watch BNN, at least for Canadian stocks. So when I'm watching BNN, they're always breaking down. Sometimes they're breaking down, letting you know of different, just different companies that are coming through. And sometimes they even have commercials on there where it might pull up, like that hydrogen stock. I wasn't even thinking about hydrogen until one day I saw a hydrogen stock video, and I was like, oh. And then I saw the thing with Justin Trudeau and the German chancellor signing that hydrogen deal, and I was like, oh, this is a video. No way around it. So that's one of those things, is how to find new stocks, is just sort of looking around. But keep in mind too, brand new, like if you're talking brand new stocks, like brand new companies, they do tend to be much more risky than than good stocks that have been around for a while. But if you're looking to just find stocks that you don't have, there's a couple of definitely things. I'm presenting every Monday. I have a list of stocks, so you can check out those lists. You might find something in there that you want to do some research on. TMX Money, and just if you do a web search on TMX and money, it'll bring you to a website. I think it's tmx.money.ca. They have lists there. You can, on their front page, you can say, okay, I'm looking for a dividend stock. You can click on their dividends, and they'll give you a list, I think, of the top 50 dividend payers. Also, they have a screener there as well. And if you go, I think you have to register to use the screener. I could be wrong on that, but it's all free to register. And you can use a screener where you can say, okay, I'm looking for a stock in sector A that has a beta between, this and that, and, has made a profit last year. You can put in all kinds of different things, and it will bring up a whole bunch of stocks. And then it's just a matter of just sort of going through them. And when you see one that does interest you, then, don't just buy it, do some deep dives on that. Check out that stock, find out about that company. Anywhere from seeing if anybody's made videos on it to, reading their wiki, maybe go to the website, look at the financials on that stock, and are they making a profit? Those are just little questions that you can start to ask yourself as you move along. So that's kind of a good little thing here. Hey, finally, I am able to catch one of the live streams. Welcome, Sean. Sean is also a YouTuber, though I think he hasn't made too many videos lately, because Sean's doing the smart thing. He is putting school first, because he's still a young guy, and school should always come first. You can always, do your other stuff outside of that, but when it comes to getting an education, depending on what your goals are, definitely should come first, 100%. All right, so that was my overall investing strategy. All right, the next question I have, actually, before I get to that, I got a quick question here from Neville. Are there tax advantages of buying U.S. stocks in an RRSP rather than a TFSA? Yes, that's the answer. So let me give you the reason. So there is a treaty between Canada and the U.S. It's a tax treaty. Now, that tax treaty, it recognizes your RRSP as a registered account, but it does not recognize your TFSA. So what happens is, if you have a dividend stock in your TFSA, the US, the IRS will withhold 15% of that dividend that when it pays every month, because it doesn't recognize the TFSA as being registered. So you lose 15% of your dividend. Now you can't get that back. Now, if you had that account in a personal account, so a non TFSA, then you could apply for a credit to get that taxes back. So if you're in your RRSP though, there is no withholding tax. You get 100% of the dividend because the US and this treaty does recognize the RRSP. So when it comes to high, especially high dividend US stocks, the number one best place is your RRSP. The number two best place is your personal account, only because you can still get that taxes back. But mind you, if you have it in your personal account and there's growth on that, you're then going to be looking at capital gains because it is in your personal account. If you have a stock, like some of my stocks in my TFSA US stocks, they have meager dividends, and I don't, I'm not buying those stocks for the dividends. Those are my growth stocks that just happen to have a dividend. And I'm okay with losing the 15% on those because it's not a big deal. The goal with those ones is to grow my contribution room, because that's kind of the whole idea. The more you can grow that contribution room, the more money you have sitting in that TFSA that's tax free. So that's not a bad thing. Congrats on the 1K again. That's amazing. Thank you, Sean. Yes, it was always, I mean, I love getting to the 1,000. It's one of those things. They say it takes about a year. I did it in just less than a year. So I guess that puts me a tiny bit ahead of the average, but it is a long haul. Now, there is talks within YouTube that, because they recently made some changes to monetization where you can now, instead of 4,000 watch hours, you can get, what is it? I think it's 5 million views on a short or something like that. I can't remember the exact number. It might be 2 million. It's either 2 million or 5 million, or it could even be 10 million. I wasn't paying attention because I knew I wasn't going that route. But there is talk that they are looking at maybe even lowering the 1,000 and the 1,000 subs and 4,000 watch time hours sometime next year. But it's hard to say. I think they should, because it is a long haul. Like if somebody wants to make YouTube into a living, you first of all have to work for absolutely free for the first year, or longer if you don't catch on as fast. And you then, once you are monetized, you have to, until your channel grows big enough, you're going to be making peanuts on what you're going. So like, for example, my last video, the one that came out on third, well, we won't even do that one. We'll do the one before that, because there's a 2-day delay on the monetization. So that video right now is only made about $6, just to give you an idea. So if you put in the amount of work and time that goes into making that video, and then you're sitting there at having made $6 on it, you can see that you're not making a lot. But as your channel grows, as your views grow, those numbers start to get higher. And obviously, if you get to a point where you've got like 500,000 subs, and you're getting crazy amounts of views on every video, well, then that gets a little bit higher. And then also, because AdSense is not something that pays a ton, a lot of bigger YouTubers will look at sponsorships, and I will look at sponsorships. I'm not going to say I won't, but I do have one rule, and this is my rule. I'm not going to sponsor something on the channel that I don't believe in. It's just no ands, if, or buts. So if I have somebody comes up to me with, super cool coin and says, hey, this super cool coin is going to be the next thing in crypto, we'll give you $10,000 to do a video on it and tell everybody how great it is, I'll be like, no, that's a piece of garbage. I'm not going to promote that under any. You could pay me $20,000 and I still won't promote that. So it's going to be one of those things. When you see me eventually do a promotion, it's only going to be stuff that I actually believe in. Or if it's something I only half believe in, if they let me explain exactly, if they let me give both the pros and cons, that would be a different story. But, I'm not going to, sit here and peddle something that I don't believe in, because no way. as far as I'm concerned, that hurts our relationship. And I'm not going to do that. And it doesn't matter how much money they want to throw at me. The answer would be no. Simple as that. Okay. Now let's see here. And Mustafa says, I love your videos. Keep up the great content. Thank you. And where's your bubble? Where is my bubble? Okay. Nitin, I'm not 100% sure what we're talking about. Which bubble are we looking at? I'll let you answer that because I'm not 100% sure, and I don't want to sort of go on a tangent talking about bubbles if I don't know which bubble we're talking about. That's great. Having morals means so much for your community. Yeah, absolutely. The morals to me, it comes first. If I get to a point where I'm going to start, if I'm going to start throwing my morals away for money, then it's time for me to leave YouTube. That's the way I look at it. Do you a good place to buy a cold wallet in Ontario? Okay, so when it comes to buying a wallet, personally, I like Ledger. And I will usually say, now some people will say don't buy Ledger on Amazon because you could have a situation where somebody has bought some ledgers and maybe put some malicious software on it, rewrapped them, and then sold them as a third party on Amazon. So I normally say just buy it directly from Ledger themselves. That would be the only real advice I would have on Ledger. They're not that expensive. It does take a little while to get you, but they're going to be the safest place for your crypto. Now, when it comes to something like ShakePay, it's probably safe. If you've got money sitting on ShakePay, I don't think you have a lot to worry about. It's more or less some of these other exchanges. Like you take, for example, some of the exchanges like, look at Celsius. They were offering all this great interest and people were throwing their money at it. And now a lot of these people no longer have that money. So that's kind of where I would go with that. I would definitely recommend Ledger, and I would recommend that you buy it directly from them. It's one of these things you can't skimp on security when it comes to your own money because you don't want to, you don't want to lose money. The drink. All right. For some reason now, Nitin, I'm thinking of bubble tea, and I do love bubble tea. You can get bubble tea like it's huge on the West Coast, bubble tea, and it's really cool. I know when I first ran into it, I was looking at it and I'm like, what the banana bread is that? But it's kind of neat. You got these little, I guess they're gelatin type bubbles in them, and you can suck them up through the straw. So that is pretty cool. Now, Nitin, if you're not talking about that, I don't know. So, but that's kind of cool. Anyway, that was the whole thing about bubbles. All right. The next question I had that I was about to get to, because we had that great question there from Mustafa. What do you like to do outside of investing? That was the next question. So there's a lot of different things I do. I'm a geek at heart. So, anything geek culture, if you got something Marvel or Star Wars, I am going to, bubbly, the water. I get it. Yes, I will promote bubbly. This stuff is fantastic. Like this is the cherry bubbly, and it tastes as good as a soda pop, but it's 100% healthy for you. I'll have a little drink right now just to prove it. So I like it. And they got a whole bunch of different flavors. My favorite usually changes. Right now it's currently the cherry, but I've also really liked the pineapple and apple, and also the orange. So yeah, there's a lot of different flavors. Do love the bubbly. So, but that's just me. Give it a try. If you guys like it, then awesome. You found a good alternative to drinking pop. But if you want to keep drinking pop, I'm a shareholder in Coke. So, maybe buy a Coke. Anyway, that was a little bit horrible. Mango bubbly is awesome. Yeah, absolutely. There's also mango bubbly. I do like the mango bubbly too. I even like the grapefruit. I don't think there's a bubbly that I don't like. Let's just put it that way. All right. So what do I like to do outside of investing? So I'm a geek. I love anything Star Wars and Marvel, even DC. I like pretty much like a little bit of everything that way. Um, I really love Lego for some crazy reason. Like right here, bring this over. This is a ship I made out of just extra parts I had kicking around from some of the different Lego things. Because upstairs we got a little shelf for Lego, and we have like I've got an X-wing fighter and a TIE fighter, an Imperial shuttle, got a whole bunch of different Lego. So I just find, because I'm very creative and I've got a good I just got a great imagination. I can pull things together with Lego. Probably the biggest regrets I have when it comes to Lego is that all of the ships I have already put together. Um, it's like I kind of want to take them all apart just to use those parts to make something completely brand new. So, I did order some other Lego for that. But anyway, that's Lego. I also still have a deep love of science. I watch a good amount of documentaries because, well, science, it's kind of neat. I tend to keep up on most of the new advances in science. What else do I like? I do like travel. And here's this new thing that I've been liking a lot. It's like kind of like when it comes to YouTube. Um, I like to watch. Sometimes I like to watch reaction videos. People reacting to like for example, if somebody's watching Star Wars for the first time and they film a reaction video, it's kind of cool because then by watching it, it makes me so almost feel like the way I was the first time I watched Star Wars type thing. So yeah, a little bit of stuff like that. Nitten likes the BlackBerry. I do like the BlackBerry. Star Trek: The Next Generation. Yes, I do like Star Trek too. Interestingly enough, I was watching A Strange New World. So that's one of the new Star Treks, the one that takes place before the original series, with the first Enterprise crew under Captain Pike. And there's a couple of episodes in that first season that were, in my opinion, the best episodes of Star Trek I've seen in probably 20 years. So if you like Star Wars, if you like Star Trek, you definitely want to check that one out. It is really, really worth it. Are you coming back to Van City? You never know. You never know. I don't have any immediate plans, but I do love. I mean, Vancouver's an awesome place to live. Now, I lived there during the Winter Olympics, so that was just it was just friggin' awesome. And one of the things I do like is like in Vancouver. You've probably heard about the rain, but the way the rain works in Vancouver is most of the summer, there's very little rain in the summer, but your spring and your fall tend to be like, it's almost like a nice warm sandwich with rainy crust, because in the spring and fall, you get a lot of rain. I personally didn't mind the rain. I mean, there was many winters when I was in Vancouver where, the rain would just pretty much percolate right through the whole winter too. And you really didn't get any snow. So I was okay with it. But some people, I think the rain starts to get a little bit too much for them. But yeah, so that's Vancouver. Vancouver is also just, I guess I'll throw a couple other things there. One of the neat things about Vancouver is I used to work downtown Vancouver, and I worked in that block where they did most of the filming. So all the time I'd be watching TV and I would recognize all of the different buildings. I would recognize the different streets that especially because you look at the street signs in like something they're showing. Remember, here's an interesting story. Smallville, which was a show that was on TV years ago, they had this one episode where they had Zod, who was inhabiting Lex Luthor's body, but they did this big pan out from the Daily Planet. Now, the Daily Planet that they used was the building right next to the building I worked in. So I walked by that every day. And sometimes I'd come out at night and there'd actually be mailboxes for the Daily Planet. One day at night, I came out of work and there was a big LexCorp truck just sitting there. So I found that kind of interesting. But that finale that they did in Smallville, they did this pan back and they showed my building, the building I worked in, and there was a hole inside the building with smoke coming out of it. And it was exactly where I worked. And I was just like, that's awesome. I screenshotted that, and that became my my screensaver for like the longest time, or my wallpaper, because I just thought that was hilarious that that just happened to be the building that that I worked in at the time. So it was kind of neat. Sometimes you never knew what was going to happen. You come out. I remember one time I came out, I walked by this one street, and it was just a regular street before, but when I walked by it, they had a whole bunch of extra awnings up to make it look a little bit more Chinese than it normally looked. And then they had all of these great big scar marks all across the pavement. And it turned out they used that for one of the Fantastic Four battles when they were filming it. And it was like, you know, apparently the scar marks were from the Human Torch in a battle of some sort. So I was just like, very cool. But that was one of those things that sometimes when you're watching TV and you start to recognize the buildings, you end up suspending your disbelief a little bit. So that's just one of those things that you have to deal with. We haven't got any rain till yet. Yeah, it's coming, folks. That rain is coming. All right, so we're going to wrap this up probably pretty soon here. Unless you guys got any more questions you want to drop them in now. We'll say we'll give you about 5 minutes just to drop things in, because, you know, I actually, after this video, what I'm going to be doing is I need to script Monday's video because I film it tomorrow. And plus tomorrow we have a live stream again. It'll be our regular this week's stream. So we'll have that going for you tomorrow. And also tonight, I need to drop in on the friggin' Oracle stream. I meant to do it last night, but got caught up in some personal stuff yesterday. And by the time I was finished it, I look up and it was like 10 o'clock. And I'm like, oh, holy banana bread. I think I was planning to jump on at 8 o'clock over there on the friggin' Oracle show. So tonight I'm going to, make a cameo over on his show. All right. FRU. Yes. I am familiar with FRU. I think we've actually had them show up in a list or two every so often. And let's see. Oh, top 5 growth stocks according to you to buy right now. Well, first of all, Nitin, it shouldn't be according to me. You always want to be doing your own research. But when it comes to growth stocks right now, we're in the situation where we've got an impending recession coming upon us. So what I think about here is a couple of things that really, here's this thing. When you say growth, there's 2 different definitions. Are you looking for something that's going to grow now, that's going to be growing, consistently throughout the next year? Or are you looking for something that will be a massive opportunity to buy it now cheap, and then on the other side of the bear market, it gets more expensive? So what I will do then for you, Nitin, is I will make some videos on this for you instead of just throwing you, because I don't want to throw companies at you. One company I would definitely throw, like in that list, would be, of course, CN, especially if it's just if you're looking for something that's going to grow now, because CN tends to be part of the supply chain. If it's part of the supply chain, it usually will be recession proof. And I know a lot of times during the first part of this bear market, everything in my portfolio would be in the red except for CN or oil. So CN is definitely, some of the oil stocks are going to be doing really well, especially after we get on the other side of the primaries down in the US. So, there's a lot of different ones. Like one little ETF I love is XEG, for example. XEG, I think, it's got a good amount of oil exposure, and they invest in quite a few of the top hitters. Of course, Enbridge, always good. Tourmaline, another good one. So there's a lot of good oil stocks out there, because I do tend to be a little bullish on the oil sector, but while in the energy sector in general, because even after oil is come and gone, we're still going to have an energy sector, as people will move a lot more towards renewables, wind power, hydrogen. So I don't think hydrogen is ready yet, but I think somewhere in the future we may, be relying on it a little bit more. Are there advantages of using a cash account instead of a registered account in regards to individual dividend or individual stocks? I guess that answer really comes down to what you're using it for. If you're talking day trading, well, yeah, you have to day trade in a personal account or a cash account. But when it comes to everything else, this is the way I look at it. Use your TFSA first, unless you've got American dividend stocks. Those should be going into your RRSP. If your TFSA is full, then you can start putting things into your RRSP. Or if you are making a lot of money and you want to lower your taxes, you want to lower yourself down a tax bracket, but do that by putting that money into your RRSP, because that takes away from your income, lowers it down. That's kind of the whole strategic thing. Now, if you're in a situation where you are making a lot of money and you just, for 1 year, and you just want to pile it all into your RRSP, that's fine, because you don't have to use all of your RRSP on to lower your income that year. You can always just use enough to lower yourself down to the next tax level. And then that excess that's there, it carries forward, and you could do that again next year. So you could conceivably keep lowering your tax level, because the whole idea of the RRSP is you want a way to mitigate taxes when you're making a lot of money. And then in retirement, when you shouldn't be making a lot of money, that's when you're going to be pulling that money out. And that's when you're going to be paying the taxes on it when you're in a much, much lower tax bracket. So you save taxes overall on the RRSP. So that's the way I would approach it, is use the RRSP as needed. But your TFSA, get that one, fill up that one first, unless you do need that tax benefit. If you need the tax benefit, then make that your highest priority. And thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm here for. I think today we've gone, what have we gone? Oh, we've gone an hour and a half. I'm using my phone as a camera because I find it's just doing a better job than my MacBook Pro's camera. So it's kind of on this arm that's kind of sticking out here, and it just covers a little bit of my screen, so that way there I can look at it and make it look like I'm looking at you guys, and also read that chat at the same time. So it kind of hides the time, so I didn't know how long we were at, but that's okay. You know what? Once the 1 year Q&A comes around once a year, maybe we'll do it. I don't know if we'll go that long. If you guys want another Q&A at some point, let me know. We'll do it. It's I'm here to give you guys what you want. But anyway, I just want to thank you guys for all being here today. I know this is a outside of the ordinary live stream, but for those of you who want to keep the fun coming, come back tomorrow, 4 o'clock Eastern. We'll have our regular This Week live stream, and we'll have a video out for you Monday. Monday's video is going to be, if you remember, I just recently did the high dividend monthly stocks. I'm going to do the exact same thing, but this time it's going to be with the quarterly stocks. So that'll be Monday coming up. And then on Thursday, going to do a deep dive in, I think it's Sienna. It's the old folks home, Sienna. Anyway, we're going to get those done. Right now, I'm going to go and have something to drink, non-alcoholic. We've had that one-time event. Those of you who haven't watched that live stream, it is fun. If you just want to watch that live stream for the moments that I'm silly or a little bit enumerated, then jump to about the middle point. The second half, I'm a little bit wacky, but that's just the way it goes. Anyway, thank you guys for being here. We will see you guys all again very soon. Well, tomorrow. Have a fantastic afternoon. Have a great Saturday, everybody.